You're
Thank you.
the clearest representation of what New York City is, and you guys are what makes hip hop great
Man, thank
and
you.
what
Appreciate
makes
that.
hip hop last.
So I salute hip hop and everybody from y'all, the informatives of the information station, as I would say it.
Yeah.
You know, from you guys having interviews, because without you guys, nobody gets to have the identity of the artist. Continue doing your thing, man. Keep these platforms going.
Changing of the hip hop guards. Y'all are the guards. Let's make it happen, y'all.
Welcome everybody to Changing of the Hip Hop Guards. I am your host, Uncle E. That is my partner, the journalist Sincere. And today we have the pleasure to have none other than Cookie Pryce, one half of the legendary group Cookie Crew, straight out of London. Man, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
No doubt, no
Yeah.
doubt. This is Cookie. So there's so much history that we could get into, but if you could do us a favor and please, let's go back a little way back into time. And if you could
Wow.
tell the people a little bit about yourself, where you're from, you know, your surrounding areas and how you grew up and what was going on at that time.
Absolutely. I mean, the Cookie Crew, we were born and raised in South London. So where I am now, like everywhere, everything outside around me this is where the Cookie Crew started, literally.
Okay.
You know, it was the early 80s. You know, we are children of West Indian parents. My parents are from Jamaica. Susan's parents were from Barbados. You know, we've known each other since we were about 2 years old. We went to kindergarten together. We went to the same school, and you know, we're still friends to this day. You know, was out hanging out last night. So our relationship as a group was beyond being in the Cookie Crew and beyond hip hop. It's like we discovered that whole journey we did together. So yeah, I'm from South London. Discovered hip hop in the very early 80s. You know, pre-digital, pre all the fancy things that we can do here now, technology. You know, everything was analog. Everything was about cassette tapes or pirate radio stations. But yeah, so we're talking about what, 1982, 83, probably even 1979, which was my first trip to New York, was in 1979.
1979. Okay, so we're
Oh,
talking very early when it comes
yes.
to hip hop culture. So what exactly was it that caught your attention when it came to hip hop? Was it music? Was it the dance? Was it the art? What was it?
It was mainly, I would say it was the music, because we grew up, our households was full of music. Our parents come from the Caribbean. So the music that we were influenced by was, you know, it was the calypso, the reggae, just the old school stuff. So we were always into music. Music was always our first love. We were particularly fond of soul music, funk, boogie. That was our first innings when it comes to music. Because Susan's dad, he was a collector of records, and he would buy all the latest imports from the US. So we grew up listening to a lot of American music. You know, being in the UK back then, didn't really see many, you know, people of color on TV, or, you know, music was there. I would say we had a UK soul scene, but we weren't given the opportunities. But yeah, our first love would have been definitely reggae, calypso, soul, very heavily US influence.
Okay. So was that trip to the US in 79? Was that where you got your first glimpse when it comes to hip hop?
Yeah, well, actually, I would say, oh, it might have been 1978. What was that song that came out? It was on Top of the Pops, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five.
The message?
So the message, right. So what year
Yeah.
was that? Was that 1977, 78, perhaps?
Maybe 82, I believe.
Probably.
Oh, was
Yeah,
it?
that was a little bit further. Yeah.
Oh, was it really? Oh,
Yeah. I mean,
who
78,
knows?
79, you're probably talking more like
Sugar Hill Gang,
probably Sugar Hill Gang,
Hill
Cold Crush
Gang.
Brothers, stuff like
All
that.
that
Yeah.
stuff, all that stuff. So we had access to, again, there were no radio stations playing music that we eventually fell in love with, but we were very aware of the music coming out of the US, because we'd visit the US. I went there first in 1979. First thing we done was like take the radio. So
Hmm.
I would walk with loads of cassette tapes, and our mixtapes were taping everything off the radio, bringing it back to the UK, burning copies of those, and literally just sharing them amongst friends. That's how we access music. We had, I think at that time, there may have been a handful of like pirate radio stations that were getting imports, where DJs were traveling, coming back, playing all these things. But there weren't places we could go to we weren't going out to clubs. There weren't certain radio stations. Radio stations weren't playing black music. If there was, it was very commercial, but it wasn't the kind of stuff that we got into. And I think we kind of just fell into it accidentally. We initially thought we were going to be singers. That was kind of like growing up in schools, like was always dancing, singing. It's like, oh, we're going to be singers, whatever. And we went to the same youth club together. We went to the same church, which is literally up the road from us. So on a Friday evening in the church hall was the youth club. So after school, that was kind of like our hangout spot. On Sunday, it was the same place where we used to go to church. So that was our stomping ground for just enjoying ourselves, jumping on whatever stage was there, singing songs from the records that we were listening to at home. And to us, it was fun. There was nothing in our head to say, we're going to get into the music industry. Like, yeah, we want to be singers, but what does that mean? We took it, it was just fun to us. And I think when we first heard the message, and it would have been probably Chic's record that everybody sampled, all the soul music that we listened to, all the break beats were on those records. So that was our first love. And those are the records we were singing and reciting and pretending that we were, in the group. And it was literally from there, we just listening to music, pirate radio stations, and just in the UK at that time, there was radio stations that used to come on like Friday nights. And we had a DJ called Greg Edwards. He was an American DJ, but he was based in the UK. He had a show on, I think it was Capital Radio in the UK, but he also broadcasted live from a venue called Lyceum. We were too young to go clubbing. So we'd tune into that live on a Friday night and just listen. We just absorbed music. We created our own world. We just made it ours. Our little spot, our little South London spot, it was just me and Susie, a handful of friends that we had around us. But there was no like written in stone, like we're going to do this and this is how we're going to get to the music industry. Didn't have a clue what the music industry looked like. It was just something we did. It was like a hobby that became more of a hobby. Then it became our career. Then it became a business. And it's like, still hanging in there, and I do something.
Right.
Musically, what were you seeing visually in the UK as far as the scene?
Wow. Visually, again, in terms of visually for us to see what an artist looked like or what a band looked like, it was always the album cover. We would spend hours looking because there was nothing on TV. MTV wasn't around then, and we all remember back in the days, MTV weren't playing black music. It was Michael Jackson that kind of like broke that barrier. So for us, it was all about the record sleeve. We'll get the record sleeve, and there's all American artists, all those soul funk bands, like crazy dressing with the leather, the feathers. But to us, that was just so exciting because we'd sit down for hours looking at the cover art, putting it out, looking at the sleeve notes, looking at all the production credits, just absorbing information that way. We never knew the process of how that became vinyl. We just knew this is the end product. And also, when we were listening to music back in the day, there wasn't a timeline on it. It's not like now, if something comes out in 6 months' time, it's out of date, something's new. As far as we're concerned, we were listening to the same music for a very long time. Yes. And even now, to these days, when I'm listening to music, if I go to YouTube or Spotify, I'm tuning into the 80s stuff and the 90s stuff.
Right.
The current music, yeah, it's great, it's doing its thing, but what raised me and what kind of gives me a buzz is listening to the old music, because people took time to produce, they took time to write. Albums would take 6 months, a year, 18 months for it from beginning to end. Now people record today, they got it on Spotify tomorrow, and there's no quality to it. It's amazing how the industry's changed. But for us, we took time to discover music, or music would discover us, and everything was exciting. Every piece of music that came out was exciting. And I just remember one song that kind of like took us by storm was The Crown. What's his name? What's the guy's? Oh, Gary Bird and the GB Experience.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
And Stevie Wonder was on that?
He was on that song, yeah. He was doing the rapping bit, the rapping singing bit. Now that song.
Oh wow! See, now you're gonna make me see. This is.
Yeah, you need to listen to that song. I'm sure when you hear it, you think, oh, that tune.
Right.
And although it was an R&B song, to us it had heavy influence of rap, of hip hop. Okay. So there were certain elements of music that we grew up listening to. As far as we're concerned, if something was good, it was hip hop. To this day,
Right.
if we think something's good, we'll describe it as being hip hop. If you're not behaving yourself, that means you're not being hip hop. Just simple things like that.
Right.
Yeah, it was very important to us. But there were so many. I wish I'd kind of listed a bunch of songs that kind of really influenced us. But yeah, it was good times. It was very good times.
Right.
Nice.
Who were some of the UK artists that came before the Cookie Crew?
Before the Cookie Crew, I don't know if
Nah,
that's even
right.
possible. Before the Cookie Crew, now there was a scene in the UK before we kind of placed ourselves within the scene, and I think at that time it was mainly like breakers and poppers and lockers and DJs as opposed to rappers. But there were a handful of rappers out there. In terms of female rappers, I don't know. I think I'm kind of thinking we were one of the first in terms of the UK. But even at that same time, we had Moni Love because we all used to hang out together. So Moni
Right.
lived in Battersea, and yeah, we all just used to hang out together. And there were girls around on the hip hop scene, but they were just girls that were just there. They weren't there because they were performing artists or they were into, and interested in being rappers. But I would say we were one of the first. As time went on, there was a handful of girls, of like the She Rockers, there was the Wee Papa Girl rappers.
Mm-hmm.
There was an amazing girl that we were fascinated by. And I think I could safely say she may have also been before us. And her name was Mystery MC. And she used to be in a group called Family Quest. And it was 3 guys and her. And it was a white girl. But she smacked it. There was something about her when we heard her perform, when we saw her perform, and when we heard stuff on the radio. We were like, this girl is awesome. And there was no barriers. We never thought, well, this girl's white, what's she doing? Blah, blah, blah. To this day, we still respect this girl. And her name was Mystery MC. And she used to be in a group called Family Quest. She was
Mystery
amazing,
MC.
actually. Yeah, Mystery MC.
So when they were out, were you guys already dabbling with music already?
Yeah, we were
At the same
dabbling.
time?
Yeah,
Okay.
we were dabbling, but I think we felt that we were. And because, like I said, there was a little hip hop scene happening in the UK, and it was all kind of centralized in central London. But there were
Okay.
crews and MCs and whoever that came from different parts of London, and the main hub was meeting in Covent Garden, Leicester Square, which was like all kind of like tourist area, but it was like our mecca.
Mm-hmm.
So before we kind of got into the scene heavily, we used to hear about things happening up in Covent Garden, and this person was a breaker, that person was like, we got to go and find out what's going on. And the way we introduced ourselves into that little community, because we were as nervous as hell, we were just a couple of girls that came from South London. And at that time, there was about, I want to say there was about maybe 10 or 12 of us, like all girls. And we were originally called, wait for it, the Warm Milk and Cookie Crew.
Warm
So
Milk and Cookie Crew.
that
Okay.
that is our
Okay.
original name. It's just over a period of time, it just got shortened to the Cooks and the Cookie Crew, and that it just stuck with us. So it was mainly myself and Susie that were like the core members of the group, and we wanted this all-girl crew, didn't we? So we just recruited our friends, our cousins, like, come and hang out. You got to dress a certain way, you got to act a certain way, because we're taking this thing seriously. And as much as we had fun with it, I think myself and Susie were the ones that kind of, there was something about the scene and the music and the vibe and the community that latched onto us. The other girls, they were into it, but they weren't into it or as passionate as we were. So eventually they all kind of filtered off. So it took us, and we had to be brave to step into this place called Covent Garden to kind of like seek out all these rappers that were congregating in this part of London. So what did we used to do when we went down to Covent Garden? We used to speak with an American accent, didn't we? Because we were worried that people wouldn't talk to us. And funnily enough, with this fake American accent that we had, people kind of like took interest, like, who are you? What do you do? So, we just kind of, winged it for a bit. And then we realized like that's not the route we were going to go. It's just we were having fun with it. It wasn't something we're going to kind of like follow through with. It was just kind of like a something that kind of broke down the barrier for us to kind of like, look, we're going into a space, we don't know anybody, we're coming in with what we've got. It's like, how are we going to be accepted? And also we wanted to be accepted in a respectable way as well, which luckily we did. So yeah, it was, we just took risks. But also within South London, we had a handful of friends who were breakers, who became poppers. Some of them were learning to DJ. So we had a little hip hop thing going on in the area that we're living called Clapham Junction. And to us, that was our world. And until we heard that things were happening outside of London, like Birmingham, Manchester, Wolverhampton, all these places, it's like this thing just became bigger than what we imagined it to be. And keeping in mind, there was no radio, there was nothing on TV. You know, occasionally you might see some kind of program with an influence of hip hop, or they may have some breakers on the show or something, but it was so new to us and so exciting. And bearing in mind, we were holding down, I think I was at college training. Susan was in teacher training. So we were working full-time jobs while having this little life, you know, a weekend life, which was fabulous, actually, thinking back. And then, you know, it just, yeah, we just kept on. We just kept on listening to music, doing what we're doing. Right. We ended up we started to write songs, and we're like, what are we doing with this? Where are we taking it? Because we didn't know anybody. It was just us and a handful of friends that we knew that was into this thing. And because we used to kind of like play around with the singing stuff, you know, our friends said to us, you lot could get somewhere with this. And we didn't quite understand what that meant. But this thing happened at, we've got this building, which is probably about 10 minutes from my house, called the Battersea Town Hall. Now, the town hall was a place, it was like a community space where people could just go and hang out, and, you know, they just had things going on, whether it was theatre, events, and just general things. But it was also a hub where the community we could just walk in there, find a room, and just sit down and hang out. Now, we had a group of friends that were breakers, that were poppers. They had the ghetto blaster and everything. So we just took it upon ourselves to move into this space. Like every Friday after college or work, we'd all just meet in there, whether it was Clapham Junction or at Battersea Art Centre, and we just used to hang out there. Now, one day there was an event happening there. It was a radio station, which was LBC, which was a BBC radio station, and there was this DJ down there, and his name was Sid Burke. He's passed many years ago, and he had a show called Rice and Peas. Now, Rice and Peas was a show that used to come on Sundays on LBC. It was like a family-orientated type of radio show, but they were broadcasting live from there. So we were hanging out. He saw us. He came up to me and Susie, and he said, you know, what do you girls do? And we said, we rap. It's like, we've never picked up a mic in our lives. We've never performed anywhere. We've never done anything. So we said we rapped. So he took us into a room, did an interview. He broadcasted it on his show on the Sunday. And I would say from there, it was history, really. It's like, we've done this community thing, started getting phone calls to just do like local gigs, you know, whether it was a local town hall, a community centre. We'd walk with our cassette tapes, which had an instrumental on it. And it was just like little bits. And all during this period, I was still working. I was a chef at the Ministry of Defence. Susan was a kindergarten teacher. But come the evenings and come the weekends, our lives completely revolved around discovering hip hop, discovering the scene, you know, meeting other people, traveling out of London to try and, you know, get to know all the different crews and the rappers in Manchester, Birmingham. It was just something that's kind of escalated, and it was a beautiful period, a real beautiful period for hip hop that we didn't really see or know what or where it was going to go. But yeah, you know, that was part of the journey.
Right. So what did you and Susie, how did you guys pattern your rhymes? Like, in other words, what did you use for influence? Like, you know, we're going to rhyme like this, or I'm going to go first, you go sit. Like, how did you guys come up with that early on?
I think it was just so organic for us. Remember, we grew up together. We grew up as kids. Right. We went to the same school. So even to this day, there's something about our friendship and our relationship. We're kind of two of the same people, if that makes sense. We think the very same things. We're very passionate about the same things. We equally respect and understand and are passionate about hip hop. So when it came to us writing our lyrics and our content, the content that we wanted to go, you know, what we were aiming for was making sure that whatever we wrote was respectable. We wasn't into profanities, like that just wasn't our style. It wasn't our lifestyle. And we just always had these great ideas, and we just buzzed and vibed off of each other. It's like, I knew what she was going to say. She knew what I was going to say. We literally wrote our stuff together, or we'd have these ideas, kind of like have notes down, then we kind of like, go to our own little separate whatever areas, write our lyrics, come back, find whatever beat we're rapping over, and usually we'd have an instrumental that we are very keen on, or we think is like kind of dope, that we just want to write to it. So it was just like it was just like a mutual, very organic. Nothing was contrived. We did not have any issues writing together. Funny enough, and nobody's ever asked us that question before. It's a very good question, but yeah, it just happened. It just happened.
Now, some hip hop groups or duos, right? You might hear them say something like, "Man, we used to listen to Run DMC," or "We used to listen to who's another duo, EPMD," right? And just kind of say, wow, the way they used to bounce off of each other, or the way they were right. Did you guys also have any groups that might have influenced you a little bit in that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of groups, we were huge fans of Stetsasonic. That's our first call, is Stetsasonic. Anything to do with Stetsasonic, they are our biggest influence. Now, back in the days when we were listening to their music, and we're talking about cassettes, or some kind of pirate radio station, we were blown away. Listening back on to production now of old school hip hop, it sounds very basic and very kind of like simple lyrics. But when we heard those guys, we were like, what the fuck? And to think that many years later, we ended up working with Daddy-O and DBC
Right.
and Prince Paul, which was absolutely a blessing for us. So those guys heavily influenced us. Kings of Pressure. We are huge fans of Frickin' Frack and Finesse and Inquest, which we know they've done their thing in the US, and I don't think anything happened in the UK for them. But for us, when we were absorbing ourselves in US music, we were discovering artists that people didn't know about or didn't care about. It's like, how can you not Frickin' Frack, Finesse and Inquest, MC Light, all those guys influenced us, and yes, and we would take influence from listening to the way they rhyme, the way they flow their stuff, but you'd always have your own style, you always have your own delivery, and of course, British and American, two different influences, but that was our go-to, that was our reference point, and we would always take time to make sure that we would spend time to discover other artists. Little Kim, huge fan of everything she's done. Everything she's done, everybody. And again, remember back in the day, we had our little, the UK hip hop scene was happening, but for all of us, our influence was definitely the US. Definitely the US. Some of the guys that we ended up touring with, like De La Soul, we're massive fans of EPMD. We supported Public Enemy on tour. We supported Bobby Brown on tour. We just done stuff that we would have never imagined would have happened later on in our career. But yeah, we took a lot of influence from everybody. We didn't buy anybody's style. That just wasn't
right.
It was like, okay, they're flowing like that. We need to find something, but it was always, we had our own thing going on. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, definitely not biting. I mean, I think if you speak to almost any A-list artist at some point in time, I'm sure they would say, like Eminem. I've heard him say he used to rhyme like LL when he first, and vice versa. Until you develop your own.
No, absolutely. I think you'd listen to someone and you kind of, you kind of bubble like them, but then you discover your own style, because that was always important. And everybody has a different sound, different delivery. So yeah, we made sure Cookie Crew definitely had their own sound, right?
Definitely.
Okay.
Now, at this time, are you guys shopping demos, and what labels are you looking at before signing with Rhythm King?
Well, we weren't shopping nowhere, because that wasn't our goal. We were just into this thing, this culture, this music that was ours and that belonged to north, south, east, west, all the other little towns and cities outside of the UK. That whole business side of the industry wasn't part of our package, And when it got to that stage, and we got to that stage because we had written, we worked with this group of people that they made TV adverts, literally sound beds for TV adverts. And how our personal big break came when, now this team of, I call them producers, they were creating some TV ads, and they wanted some rappers to do some voiceovers, and there was a DJ in the UK that knew them, and he recommended us, so kind of put us in touch. We went down to their studio in Soho, done what we need to do, done the job, got paid, whatever, wrote the lyrics for this TV ad. And we kind of got on with each other. We kind of liked what we were doing. It's like, and I think at that point we were doing shows, very, very small shows, where we would tape our backing track onto a cassette tape and take it to the venue. And that's what we'd use. So because we worked with them and they thought, we'd like to, why don't we make something together? And we weren't thinking like making a record. We just wanted to let's come down, vibe in the studio, do what we need to do. So we said to them, if you guys can create backing tracks for us, and backing tracks meaning like, here's our instrumental, like from a dope B-side of a record, can you just replay that and we'll take that and play it? So we just started hanging out with these guys, and they were called the Beatmasters. We recorded this song called Rock the House. I don't know if you guys have heard this song called Rock the House.
Absolutely.
So,
87.
87. I think it actually came out before that. I think it was re-released. I think it came out in 86 initially, or it could be the other way around. But anyway, we wrote this song to this track, and the original track had more of it was a hip hop track. So we were kind of like, we just done what we was asked to do it, right? Wrote a rap. And so those guys kind of messed with it. They tweaked it. They, mixed it. And there was no rhyme or reason. There was no, we're making this, we're taking it to a label. We were just like having fun, right? So it was a time when hip house was becoming a thing in the US, in the UK. There's a big scene going on in the UK. And I think that was their kind of bag. So by the time they finished mixing this track, and this is just literally just playing around with it turned into a hip house record, right? Okay. Just by accident, it turned into a hip house record. Now, to this day, I still do not know the exact story, how that got into the hands of Rhythm King, but it did. But there was somebody in the middle of that, and his name was Mark Moore, and he was a DJ. And he used to be in a group called S Express. So he used to DJ in clubs. So I think he may have got a copy of it. It could have been on a cassette tape, it could have been a DAT tape, but it definitely was not a vinyl. So he started playing that in the clubs, got a huge reaction. Playing it more in the clubs, got a massive reaction. So, and he had a relationship with Rhythm King Records, took it to Rhythm King. They liked it. Somehow they got in touch with us. I cannot remember how. And by that time, What the House wasn't a record that we liked, that we wanted to be associated with, because it became hip house and we were hardcore hip hop. We didn't want to ruin the reputation that we were building because we were hardcore hip hop. So we said, you guys can do what you want with it. Anyway, this record got released, and I can tell you to this day, we've never signed a piece of paper to say that we are signed to Rhythm King. But glory be to God, that record looked after us to this day. And we've never had any bad luck or any sad stories with that record. So anyway, they put this record out, and we said, you guys can do what you want with it. We're not going to promote it. We're not going to perform it, because if we're seen performing, it's like we're going to lose all our street cred. It's not the direction that we want to go in.
Right.
And, so they put it out, and it got to number 5 in the national charts in the UK, which is huge, right? So at that time, it was getting played on the radio. It was getting playlisted. We were getting phone calls. People wanted us to perform, and it was like, we don't want anything to do with this record because it's not ours. It belongs to the Beatmasters. We feature on it. So that was kind of like a bit of a confusing time for us, because we didn't have management. We were just doing our own thing. And it's like, what is the fuss about this bloody record? So I think during that period, we were doing like local shows anyway. And the woman that eventually became our manager, she used to work at this venue called the Town and Country Club and the Shore Theatre. Now, she was putting on a show where she was bringing Bambata over, Lisa Lee, Ike C, Brim, the graffiti artist. It was like a hip hop show. So this woman was looking for us to perform at this show, right? And she found us in a club on a night that Run DMC were playing, ironically. So obviously people were looking for us based on this record that had gone out, which we hated, and whatever. So we thought this record would go away, but obviously it didn't. And then it got to a point where this record was going to be released in the US. Now, we had no management, and at the time we'd done this show at Shore Theatre with all these amazing artists, and DJ Red Alert was there as well, which was fantastic. we needed a manager. And we said to this woman, her name was Jean Davenport, it's like, we want you to manage us. And she's never managed a band before. She's never had anything to do with looking after art. She booked artists. So eventually this woman and her sister-in-law ended up managing us. And they were able to go in and speak on our behalf, right? Because that record went to number 5. All of a sudden, all the record labels were calling us, all the publishing companies were calling us, and we didn't understand business. So we said, okay, Jean, Mary, we need you guys to kind of like take over this, because this record seems to have blown up. We don't want anything to do with it, but we need somebody to kind of like just be that representation for us. So anyway, we had all these meetings with all these record labels, and like I said, we never signed a recording contract with Rhythm King Records, but luckily, somehow, to this day, our publishing, anything to do with that record, we still get paid from it. So somebody put in some kind of paperwork. So like I said, we never had any sad stories, and we've all heard sad stories of people making records, getting ripped off, and it's like, it was just a very strange relationship with us. With Rhythm King, we put out 2 records with them, Rock the House and Females. We even went on tour with Schoolie D, a few other like UK acts that they had on their label, and we just went with it. We just went with the flow. It's like we were doing hip hop as far as we're concerned, doing shows, getting paid. You know, we were registered with all the right industry bodies, so all our PRS and our PPL and our whatever what you guys call Sound Exchange, all that kind of. We got paid. You know, we recouped. So it was off the strength of that record and Rhythm King that eventually got us our major deal with. It was London Records in the UK, which was Polygram worldwide.
Okay.
So that's how that kind of happened. And, you know, our story, I wish we had documented it like, you know, moment by moment, because there's so many things that happened in between that, so many journeys, so many experiences, whether it was, you know, doing gigs with different artists in the US and, you know, collaborating and just being a part of a wider UK hip hop scene. But yeah, our relationship with Rhythm King was very interesting, but we're very thankful for it. Definitely very thankful, because we never got ripped off.
Right. Very nice.
Yeah, and we got a really good publishing deal based off of that record that we hated, which is weird. Very, very weird, but hey.
It worked.
Hip house tracks were found mostly in the late 80s, early 90s on, you know, artists like Jungle Brothers, Twin Hype,
Queen
Latifah,
yeah,
Special Ed, Big Daddy Kane. Do you guys consider yourselves the, you know, earlier creators of the hip house track?
We haven't like claimed it. It's like it's ours. We've done it first, but we are aware, humbly, that our record was one of the first hip house records. And it also made an impact in the US, because with Rock the House, you know, Rhythm King did their thing, and when we signed with, or did we sign with London by then? Maybe not. I just remember we had taken a trip to the US because it was TVT Records at the time in the US that were getting ready, because I think they licensed records from Rhythm King in the UK. They were getting ready to release this record, release Rock the House. And I'm trying to remember timelines, whether that visit was when we signed with Polygram or when we were still with Rhythm King. I can't remember, but all I know is we were very concerned about our reputation in the US, because, you know, we'd traveled there on holidays and absorbed the whole hip hop scene, and we was slowly, our stuff has been seeded out there. And again, we didn't want to ruin our credibility, because we're diehard hip hop girls. We weren't, don't give us nothing too soft. House music, it's like, don't do that. But not to knock house music, because house music is the funkiest shit ever.
Yeah.
So we had gone to the US. We had met, I think it was Steve Gottlieb that owned TVT Records. So we'd met Steve. I think he had come to the UK and met us, and we'd gone to the US. And we'd gone to the label, and they brought us up, you know, to meet everybody. It was all a bit weird. It's like, we're meeting everybody, went to the marketing department. They started showing us all this artwork, and we're getting ready to release this and do that. We're like, we never approved any of this. And we're not business people. We had no clue. All that was over our head. But we were so adamant that we didn't want to ruin our reputation too early, because we hadn't put out any music that was, you know, quintessentially ours at that point. So we saw all this work that they put in, and we said, no, you can't put that out. And I think I think we actually stopped them releasing it in the US. I'm sure it eventually got released, but at the time we weren't happy about it. And I think because there was no paperwork, they couldn't release it at the time. And maybe they did in the end, who knows? But anyway, that record, that recouped everything that we ever did in our lives. You know, publishing contracts, anything. It's like when we got our statements through, it's like rock the house, rock the house, rock the house. Like, fuck. If we were business minded, like, you know what, we need to make more music like this, make our money and tell everyone to fuck off. But we weren't like that. We just wanted to be, we're so loyal to the scene, and we're so busy wanting to please everybody else. If we'd known what hip house would have turned into, because we are massive fans of funky house music, all that stuff is like, it's wicked, but at the time it wasn't cool for us. It just wasn't cool. But yeah, it was an interesting journey. I just remember being in that office and looking at artwork. And it, you know, we disowned it so badly that even radio stations used to ring us because it kept going up in the charts. And when things go up in the charts, oh, we got such and such live on the phone. It's like, you ain't getting us live on the phone to talk about this.
Right.
And they made a video, but the video was, you know, it was like cartoon characters, some old black and white footage. And, you know, when it got in the charts, Beatmasters went on, you know, what we call Top of the Pops to perform it, but they perform it, you know, when they're playing on their little pianos and people dance. We weren't there. Like, look, but you know, we weren't business savvy. We weren't business savvy, but I think we were just very strong-minded, and we knew what we wanted to do, and we wanted to make sure, particularly for us, for the US, and we were nervous as hell, you know, being in the marketplace, is we just wanted to do it right. You know, we just wanted to make the right music, and we wanted that approval, you know, and who doesn't? It's the place that we looked up to. It's the place that we would travel to on holidays and go to clubs. You know, we'll go to Studio 54, we'll go to all those hip hop clubs. We'd be in the background, like watching all the dancers that became famous, like, you know, Red Alert up there DJing in the DJ booth. Us little, you know, UK girls like standing in the side watching who are those dancers? They used to dance with Salt and Pepper.
IOU dancers.
Yeah, all those guys.
And,
everybody was in this club, and we're like, wow. Latin Quarters, we went everywhere. We paid our $20. Yeah, we moved around. We moved around on that train, that number 6 train from the Bronx downtown, because we were so passionate about the scene. And plus we had family there. My sister lived in New York, and we were, and every time we went there, we was in the Bronx. So for us, we're going to New York to go shopping. We'd hit Fordham Road to go and get our name belts, our gooses, get all the fly gear to come back to the UK. But it's almost like we were scoping out this place that we were going to conquer at some point. You know, it was everything was exciting. You know, moving around, nobody knowing who we were. We'd be in a club, nobody would know that we were British, but we were observing everything, the dance moves, what was going on. When we come back to London, when we hit the clubs, we're busting those dance moves.
Right.
You know, so it's just like, yeah, we went through a journey.
Man.
We went through a journey.
This is really cool for us to hear, because it's sort of like putting a puzzle together, right? Because we, for example, you know, we see you guys on TV and the video. We see all this dancing and everything, you know, but we don't know what the backstory is. So so like all these stories you're telling us is like, okay, oh, this makes sense now. You're in the club, you see watching the dances, you're going back. I know Sincere's about to get into, you know, the first album and everything, but I have one quick question before we do that.
Yeah, and I've got a question for you guys as well. So you go.
So, like we were just mentioning about the Jungle Brothers, Queen Latifah, and all these artists that sort of took a little, you know, step into hip house, right? But before they did that, they were what we consider hip hop artists. Now, and you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, our introduction to you guys was sort of a hip house type of.
That's interesting.
Group. I mean, at least from what I'm just trying to go back and remember. My first recollection was watching, you know, the video with Fab Five Freddy and stuff like that.
Okay.
You know, so
you Born This Way.
Right.
That video.
Right.
Yeah, it was Born This Way. So you saw that as a hip house record.
I don't really know if hip house, it was sort of it didn't kind of
it wasn't like
hip hop.
Yeah,
you know,
it wasn't
had a little something else to it. You know what I mean?
it wasn't die hard hip hop in terms of what hip hop sounded like at that time. from the US. But it's interesting that you said it had a hip house tinge, because to us that certainly didn't, which is interesting.
I mean, maybe not hip house, but it had to us. It kind of had a little bit more of a dance,
Yeah,
Definitely
yeah,
dance.
yeah.
You know what I
I think
mean?
it's
Type of
I
feel
think
to it.
it's
Maybe not hip hop. Maybe that's not the right word, but
yeah. I think a dance feel to it, because it was
a dance feel.
it was a Shaft in Africa break that Daddio had used for that record. So maybe
Mhm.
it was a very up tempo record. Absolutely, it was
Right. It
definitely
was a little more
yeah,
up tempo
yeah.
and the
Kind
dancing
of.
and everything. So I guess my question is though, and I don't know. I don't know if that was how the U.S., for example, first perceived you guys. But did it have any? Did it interfere at all with you guys as far as, oh, are they really hip hop, or are they kind of
Mhm.
did that?
No,
No,
it
it
was
didn't.
interesting. I mean, like I said, we were nervous about being in the marketplace and being accepted. Um, and our journey was almost a perfect journey. We signed, we said who we want to work with, and we spent time in the US before we actually, maybe stuff was on TV, on the radio. We were in the US a lot, whether it was coming over to the New Music Seminar, because we just wanted to be present. We just didn't want to turn up and be, oh, British girls from the UK, oh, this producer would produce and we're paid them shitloads of money, they don't give a shit about us. Our journey wasn't like that at all. We made sure that we spent time, like we worked with Guru and
Mhm.
Premiere, we worked with Black Sheep, we worked with Daddio and Stetsonic guys, we worked with David DMX.
Mhm.
So all those guys, we spent time with them first. It wasn't
Okay.
like, okay, these girls are coming over, how much going to charge to produce a record? We spent time with Premiere, with Guru. They actually took time to come and hang out with us. They'd come and pick me and Susie up from my sister's house in the Bronx, take us out clubbing, introducing us to people, just being in our presence. And we wanted that because we didn't want to be treated as just a couple of girls that are signed to a label and this is a payday, you know.
Mhm.
And we wanted them to get the best out of us, and we wanted them to give us the best, right? So
Mhm.
in terms of music that we wanted to to deliver to our fans or to the market, the reason why we wanted to spend time with them, so they gave us the right music. There was a couple of things that's like we rejected it because we didn't like the sound, or it might have been too commercial, or what, for whatever reason. But we never felt that the US said our stuff was too commercial or maybe too dance orientated. It seemed like we was accepted from the off. And the funny thing is, it's not until later years that we were aware of this, like when the internet came and like people
Mhm.
started hitting you up and it's like, oh, we were fans of yours, or you bump into people years later, you're walking down wherever, somewhere in Manhattan, it's like, are you from the Cookie Crew? Like, we used to
Mhm.
watch your stuff, and it's like, we never knew that shit. Because
Yeah.
back in the day, it's like we get on a
Yeah.
plane, go to the US, go to the company, do our promo, do what we're doing working, go to the club, keep ourselves to ourselves. But people were watching TV, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes when we see our statements and we see like where some of our money was coming from, it's like, okay, our track Females was a thing on Different
Right.
Worlds, is it Different Worlds?
Mm.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah. Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
So our music was being played. And we knew our stuff was being played on the radio because we'd go to New York and do all these interviews with these DJs and stuff, but we didn't realize that people took to us.
Mm.
But in our heads, like, people don't like us, but I think because we were so nervous and very like I said, we kept ourselves to ourselves. When we came to New York, we stayed in a safe space, we'd hang out with the people that would look after us and introduce us right people. But there wasn't, not like now, it's like if you wanted to hit up your an artist or a DJ that you're a fan of, you just go on these things, innit? Instagram, WhatsApp, whatever, you can communicate directly with your fans. There's no middle person. And it's not to say that I think looking back in the way the music industry is now, I appreciate the journey and the hurdles that we had to go through. But it was very heartwarming to know that all these years later, people were actually fans of yours and they
Right.
recognize you. And our stuff was played on TV, our video was on heavy rotations. Like, we never knew that. We
Mm.
never knew that. We didn't realize the impact that we had made at the time, which, this is interesting, but I think it kind of kept us going. But also, we loved what we were doing in the US. We were very passionate about, being successful and doing it the right way. But when it came to the UK, that was our hometown. So we were also busy wanting to please our fans. It was our
Okay.
fans in the UK that was like, oh, you sold out. You went to America to work with this person, that person. Like, what am I supposed to do? How am I going? You know, this is what we do. We travel. We want to work with people internationally. You know, but there was a lot going on back in the old days. You know, in the US and the UK, there's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of, oh, you sold out. You've done this. It's like, well, you're not giving me a check. You know, and for us, it wasn't even about the check. It's like, we're doing. This is our job. We've signed a major recording contract. We've signed a publishing deal. We are committed to doing what we do. And for us, we're laying a foundation and hopefully open doors for others to come through. And fuck, we're doing what we want to do. But, you know, at the time, it was like, oh, we've got to please everybody. Oh, don't do this. Oh, got to make this, got to do that. And we realised we wasted a lot of time. We wasted a lot of time. But yeah, no, I think we felt that our music was right for the time, because I've never felt anything negative. I've never heard anybody report anything negative about our music or what we did. Maybe some people didn't even know we're from London.
Right.
How about that?
That was a little weird period of time as far as here in the now. Sincere, maybe you can tell me what your opinion was on this. When artists like Latifah and some of these other artists started kind of dabbling into that, a lot of us were kind of looking with like a microscope, like what are you doing? You know, why? Because see, house music, for example, came out, and it was a certain group of artists that were doing house music.
Right.
And then to hear certain hip hop artists that you like that are hip hop, sort of now making that type of sound, was kind of like, why?
It was
like,
almost like a standard to have at least one track on each album, like
Yeah.
at least one hip house track.
And it was like, but I know for me, maybe I'm speaking for myself. It was like, it wasn't that it was bad, but it was kind of like
awkward.
Why are you doing it just because this is what's hot right now? And it's like you have to have that one song. Like it just like the Jungle Brothers to me pulled it off. I don't know.
Yeah.
Out of all of them, to me, the Jungle Brothers was like maybe you know the only one that kind of pulled it off that it didn't have me thinking any other way.
Right.
Queen Latifah's wasn't too bad. I remember she had like, what was that? Give Me Body, I think, right?
Step into my house. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad.
I think looking back now that we're all grown and we all know the business, we know how the wheels turn and how, you know, in terms of marketing, we weren't looking at it. And if we'd known more about business back in the old days, maybe we would have said, oh, let's make a few pop records to do this and the other. But because we were so passionate and patriotic about what we wanted to do, we didn't. But I think those moves were business decisions, and it kind of makes, And I think us as fans, like, oh, why is that person selling out, making that record? It's business, you know. Labels invest in artists to get a return on their investment. And if there's a style of music or genre that's popping off, it's like, oh, we got to have a hip house record on there, because you also want to spread your fan base and your reach. So why not give that community or that side of the industry something to buy into? Because that's just, it's money, isn't it?
Yeah, we didn't understand that back then, though.
No, we didn't want to. We refused to understand it. We refused. Like, make a commercial record. Why would we do that? It's like, well, it is. If I'd known then what I know now about business, we could have been a bit more strategic.
Right.
And I think that it's because we are fans of music, and you want your fans, your favorite artists, to remain hardcore, to just make pure hip hop, not happy hip hop, not this. It's like, what's wrong with us? It's a business thing, and those were business moves, you know. And maybe if you spoke to them, maybe they didn't even want to make that style of music. But one track on an album, it's not too bad. And any album you made with a label, they want 3 commercial singles. Yeah. Do what you want, but give us 3 commercial singles. So, and we didn't have digital then. So,
right. Last thing, I also think that there were certain artists that did certain things. So we had, like, for example, you have like Will Smith at that time. He had a certain style, right? So we knew what to expect. Queen Latifah had a certain style, so we knew what to expect. So there was just certain ones that it was just like, this is not, you know what I mean? It just didn't feel normal to come. That's also what it had a lot to do.
Yeah. It's all part of learning, and the business, you know, the business evolves, and it's all to do with selling records, isn't it?
Right.
Something's commercial, everybody's going to buy it. Not just your friends in your neighborhood is going to buy this record. You want other people to buy it. It's money. Right. It's money. We're all here to make money and pay bills.
Before we get too far, you said you had a question for us.
Oh yeah.
I forgot now.
Uh-oh.
I forgot.
Oh,
It
I'm
might come
sorry.
to me.
Okay,
We
no
may have
problem.
even discussed it in our conversation. I can't remember.
No doubt. To the debut album, did you guys record the video first, or did the album come first and then the video?
We done the album. We recorded all of the album. Some of it, the first album, Born This Way. It was Born This Way, the first one. We done that in the US. We
Okay.
recorded some tracks in the UK with our UK producers. The bulk of it was recorded in the US with Daddy, because we wanted to work with certain producers. And before we, like I said, before we worked with anyone, we spent time with them, and we used to come over for the new music seminar. So that was a time where we'd go, meet people. And I think we were Polygram at the time, so we were able to, the reason why we hooked up with Premier and Guru, because we were both managed by Empire at the time. So that was an easy thing. And we spent weeks hanging out together before we actually got in the studio and done any work. Because also, being women and working with men, it's like we wanted them to respect us for what we're bringing to the table.
Right.
And the beauty of that is that everybody saw that. So we felt safe. We felt so safe with those guys. And we made sure that we got to know people. It just wasn't about it's a payday, not for us at all.
What do you remember most about the creative process of that debut album?
It was exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time, because, like I said, we relocated to the US to do that, and because we was in the hub of where hip hop lives, and we were living and based in the Bronx, and looking after ourselves and traveling back and forth to the studio, we were shitting ourselves every day when we walked into that studio, because it just had to be right. Whether we had our songs ready from the UK, we wrote a lot of our lyrics while living in the US at the time. So because people that we were working with, and because we was in an environment, or you walk into a studio where other artists were, we wanted to make sure our shit was correct. So we practiced like nobody. When we was in New York, we worked. We spent the whole time working until the last day when that album was finished. But we'd like to make sure that everything is in order. We'd like to make sure our music is in order. We were kind of like perfectionists, because we didn't want to let ourselves down. We didn't want to let the UK down, and we also didn't want to let the people down that we were working with. And the good thing about the people that we worked with, we got honest opinions out of them. And on Fade to Black, we had Guru wrote a track for us, and Drez wrote a track for us. Now, us as rappers, we've never ever had anybody write lyrics for us. We're like, people write lyrics for people? Because they do that all the time out here. We're like, that don't sound right to us. But we're just proud of what we do. It's like, how can somebody write for you? So
it didn't sound right to us either, until we found out years later about certain people writing for others.
Yeah, but that's normal. The biggest singers in the world, they have songwriters. It's like, it makes sense now. So Guru wrote A Word to the Conscious for us, and the first track that he had written for us, we actually rejected it because the content wasn't us. It was a bit too girly, a bit too saying things that we don't say. It's like, we want something hardcore or something conscious. And it took us about a week to pluck up the courage. Me and Susan plucked up the courage in the Bronx, in the apartments, like, how are we going to tell them that we don't like this song? We eventually got around to saying it, because, don't worry about it, we'll write another one. It's like, okay. So we were learning things as we went along, and we didn't offend anyone. It's like, okay, you don't like that, not a problem. And the fact that we hung out together, when he presented A Word to the Conscious, we're like, that is more like us. That is us. That's how we want to be seen. So we knew that our relationship with them was strong and honest. And then we had Drez. He wrote a song for us, like Watch the Cookie Crumble, and that was a fun track. And again, having someone write for us, like, okay, we can get used to this, but we're not having too much people writing songs for us on this album. And we're also very aware of, owning your own lyrics and the whole publishing thing. And you have to make sure on any album that with your publishing deal, you have to write X amount of songs. So that wasn't a problem for us. So we've only ever had 2 people write tracks for us. And I think we got the best out of them. And we're very, 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 very grateful for that.
Right.
But how did that come up to begin with, though? Like, what was the reason why Guru and even Drez decided to, write something?
Yeah, we worked with Guru and Premier. We was both on Empire Management
Right.
at the time, and we were just all hanging out. It's like we were fans of what
Right.
Gang Style were doing, so it was just like an organic collaboration. You know, that wasn't like us from the UK. We want to work with them. We'll pay them whatever it takes to work with them. It was an organic thing. We're in the US. They're there. They want to work with us. It's like, okay, let's do this. It was just like a mutual thing. With Drez, it was Black Sheep weren't signed yet. They were a group that were what people say now ones to watch, and they had just signed to Polygram at the time. So we were able to get Drez to work with Drez and Mr. Long before they put their own stuff out. So that was a bonus for us. And again, that was organic because we were label mates.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, it was, everything kind of fit into place. There wasn't much begging going on either side of this, the working relationships we had with people. It was like an organic thing. And also back in the day, remember people used to make demo tapes, and demo tapes went round. Our demo tape was circulated, so people heard our stuff. People was impressed with all the demos that we did back in London. It's like, yo, you guys did that. So yeah, it's like this is easy stuff for us. So we came with the goods. We weren't doing things from scratch. People weren't developing us. We just needed production, and we wanted to work with people that we wanted to work with.
Right. Can you touch a little bit on your relationship and how you guys met Fab Five Freddy?
Oh, how did we meet Fab Five Freddy? We met Fab Five Freddy for our label, actually. Yeah, he was a guy. He was a man of the moment, right? He was doing all the hip hop videos, and again, I think it was just that period where all the hip hop artists were produced by the same people, or blah, 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 doing the same gigs, and they had the same video directors. And again, we just came into that bracket. We were there living in the US. Our record's coming out. It's like, you guys want to work with Fab Five Freddy? It's like, hell, of course we do. So we spent time with Freddie as well, getting to know each other. And then, you sit down and they present you with, what do you call it? What do they call it? A treatment for a video. Yeah. So presented a treatment, and we just liked the whole vibe. Everything was just perfect, and and obviously we had an input. And what Freddie wanted to do was to inject a bit of kind of UK British in this. And then if you'd noticed like the red phone box and the policeman, so that was all kind of like tongue in cheek, and it was just a fantastic vibe. And from doing that video shoot, it kind of made us feel even safer because, that was our first, oh my God, was that our first video? I think that was our first ever video. And to have people, all those dancers, those girls and guys that were, in the house dancing, there was a call out for dancers for videos. That was the first time we had anything like that. And they liked us, we were nervous. It's like, these people like our record? Maybe do they think we're American? We are British. But yeah, we had fun with that, and we met some great friends out of making that video. And to work with Fab Five Freddy, and for him to have that mutual respect for us as well, to give us what we want, and what he got the best out of us. And he played a part in it. He had his little cameo piece in it, and it was just fun. And everybody remembers that video. We knew that video got played in the US, but we're in the UK. Nobody reported that back to us.
Right.
Nobody reported. It's like years later, it's like, you're the Cookie Crew.
Right.
Yeah.
I was reading some of the comments under that video of who's in that video. Is such and such in that video? Can you name drop people we may have missed in that video?
Yeah. Is it Serge?
Serge.
Serge
was in it.
Yeah. Serge was in it. Who else was in it? No, I think it was it Serge? Oh my God, guys, I'm old,
I mean, me personally, I remember Fab Five Freddy. I remember Search.
Was there anybody else?
I
think Search might have been the main one because he was, he was a video caller and he came to do the video.
Dancing,
and he done his thing.
He was coming down the steps, going crazy.
He's doing his thing, right? Which is, isn't that amazing?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Amazing. And then he goes and does his thing. It's like hip hop was special back then. Seriously, every moment globally in terms of what's going on in the UK, our relationship with the US was very important because everything we did is like, oh guys, we've got to go to New York to do this, got to go to New York. Just, I ain't mad, I'm going to New York, we'll shop, we eat, can go and see our family. and it was the home of hip hop. And my family are from the Bronx, so when we go to the US, it's like we ain't staying in no hotel. We don't do hotels. We are staying with family. So everything was nice. We wanted to ride the trains. My sister was terrified because we used to go out to all these club nights, come back, and in the morning she goes, "How did you guys get home?" I was doing on the train. It's like, there was no thinking of fear and danger. It's like everything we saw at the time was things we were seeing on videos. You'd be on a train and there's a b-boy there. He's got his name belt on. And that's just normal attire. But to us, it's like we're running to Fordham Road to buy everything: the name belt, the chain, the Kango hat. We were absorbed in
culture,
absorbed in Soundview because we were living in Soundview at the time.
Soundview. Oh my gosh, you guys
Hell
were
yeah.
like knee deep in.
Yeah. And none of it was planned. Everything that we did was like just absorbed in hip hop. It's like, how? Somebody was watching over us, man.
But was it sort of like a shock when you guys first, like the very first time you ended up in Soundview and all? Like, was it a little
really,
overwhelming?
because it was the
No?
essence of everything that we wanted to
Yeah,
experience, that we would hear about New York, what we'd see on TV, because we grew up watching American TV. So the fact that we were going there for music and the fact that we gave up our jobs, our career, our jobs to do hip hop and to be in America, it's like it all just happened, right? I can tell you, yes, we worked hard, we put in the groundwork, we're very passionate about the culture and the movement. So it was beyond the music. It was about the community and what hip hop does as a whole. It's not just the music. So for us to land in New York and then you get off that plane, you can smell New York. We all know what New York smells like, particularly in the summer. And then you see everything that resonates hip hop. It's like, that guy's hip hop. He may not listen to hip hop, but he dresses hip hop, because that, to us, everything. If you got that jacket on and you got them sneakers on and the fat laces, you must be hip hop. So everything was like a dream. And then when we come back to the UK, it was kind of like on a high for a few weeks, because you just come back, you got the fly gear on, you're in the clubs, and you got the latest cassette tapes. So yeah, it was a serious movement for us, and we needed that, and it built our confidence. Even though it took years for us to realize that we had like a diehard fan base that were actually into us, but unfortunately we didn't get to do like shows as such. We was always back and forth doing promo, but we ended up supporting everybody and anybody that came to the UK, which was a blessing. Yeah.
Yes. Speaking of support and a special time, can you take us back to some of your favorite shows that you guys were a part of?
Yeah. De La Soul, we supported De La Soul. We supported Guy, believe it or not. We supported Public Enemy, EPMD. We supported Bobby Brown at Wembley. We've done 8 nights at Wembley, and he selected us. We was on tour at the time. We was doing like a UK tour, and back in the days when labels have to bid for their artists to be the support act and all that kind of nonsense. So we was on our tour bus waiting for that phone call to come in. The phone was about that big to come in, and because people had to submit their videotapes, and him and his team chose us to support him at Wembley. We supported Heavy D in the Boys when they performed many years ago, and these were like club nights. A lot of them were club nights before they were like proper big gigs, arena shows. Yeah, there's like small club venues, well, big club venues. Salt and Pepper, we'd open for Salt and Pepper. God, I think we were like the support act of the century at the time. And then we were doing our own headline shows in like the UK and Europe. They were good times, man. Very good times.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so dope.
Going into that sophomore album, I know you touched on it a little bit. What was changing as far as the label and the chemistry with your partner? Is anything changing? Any adjustments being made? Did you find the second album easy to work on? What changes?
You just cut out there. Repeat that.
Can you hear? Okay. Going into your second, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Going into your second albums, what changes were going on as far as chemistry with the label, chemistry with your partner? Did you find it easy to record that second album, or were things really changing for the worse?
I think it was definitely not for the worse. say for the worst, not for the worst, but I'll get to that. Things were changing because we wanted, I must say from the beginning, we always had creative control. And maybe at times that could have been to our detriment, because we all know, as we were speaking earlier, the music industry is a business. They want their commercial music. We didn't want to do commercial music, but you got enough hits, to satisfy whatever your desire was. But for the second album, we wanted to come across a bit more mature, a bit more, what's the word, a bit more conscious, a bit more radical, because we felt that we had a job to do. Even though we were rappers and having fun, we knew that we were role models. And because we were raised a certain way, we had certain ways about things that we wanted to relay that in our songs. So we wanted to make sure that we had certain content on there that was more in tune to who we were and to where we want to take it. But we knew at that time that the label wanted more pop music, right? They wanted more of what we were doing previously. And we could see that that relationship was dissolving a little bit. We're still able to complete the album, do what we need to do. We went to the US, still recorded with producers that we want to work with. We toured the album, we've done everything. But that's when we kind of got to a point where it's like, okay, they're not getting all the hits that they wanted. We're staying loyal to the genre that we love and like. We didn't want to prostitute ourselves in any way. And that's when we realized, shit, this is a business. It's like, if you don't do this and that, you could get dropped by your label, this, that, and the other. But we weren't too fussed about this word being dropped by your label. We just wanted to make good music. And we made sure that's what we did. Remember, we only done 2 albums. On the 2 albums, I can say that every track that we've done, we are proud of. And a few months ago, we'd kind of like sat and listened to stuff and kind of gone through it with a fine tooth comb and realized some of the stuff we were saying and some of the stuff we were addressing are very relevant to what's happening in this day and age. Some of it we felt was, and we were told at the time, was ahead of our time in terms of the lyrical content and what we were about. So we're very proud of those 2 albums. It's a shame we weren't able to go on to do a 3rd album, but I think mine and Susie's relationship was, it's always going to be family and friends. Nothing would ever separate us to this day. Is we made a conscious decision. It's like, we don't want to do this anymore, because if we do it, that's when it's going to become painful, because the label are going to say, well, we want this and that, and if you don't do it was all a bit like, we don't want to go that route. So it was our choice. Before anybody could come to us and say, right, we're dropping the Cookie Crew, it wasn't about that. They wanted us to continue making music. We began to struggle a bit because I think the scene changed, the industry changed, things around us changed. It's like, oh, can we really do this without jeopardizing our personal reputation and just making shit music and have to justify the shit music to people? We didn't want to go through that. So we made a decision, like, after this album, let's just wind it down a bit. So we just kind of wound it down in the background, and we were still putting out, I think we were still like making like singles and just putting stuff out and still gigging. In fact, we were doing more shows than we'd ever done, because we're still getting booked all over Europe. We're still like going to the US back and forth, like whether it's doing some promo stuff. So I can safely say it was our decision to do that. And we know that they wanted to continue. They wanted to, they used to do that thing where they'd extend your contract. It's like, I think we found it a bit of a struggle to even write, like, what we're writing about now, because things have changed. We probably weren't going out as much and doing what we're doing. So we're like, it's time to wind it down. And then we just diplomatically just wound it down. So it wasn't painful. It wasn't, oh, we should have done this. Oh, I'm going to go solo because you let me. It just wasn't that. We actually sat and we spoke. Well, Susan wanted to go back to studying, because she was studying to be a school teacher. So while we were doing Cookie Crew, while we were touring and on the plane, she was still doing her coursework, and it just got too much where she had to kind of defer that. So it was an opportunity to go back and finish off her studies. Myself and a couple of friends, we ended up setting up like a small company doing club night promotions and raising sponsorship. I still kept my toes in the industry, but just winging stuff, just doing what I need to do. Because at the end of the day, we all know we've got bills to pay, right? If you're not touring, making records and that money's coming in, it's like, what do you do? But we always had it. I think we were industrious anyway. So we wound down. It was our choice. and it just happened nice and smoothly. And then, I continued working in the industry, doing various things, dabbling in this. Started working at agencies, and I started going into labels, a bit of reception here, working in departments, and it just led from one thing to another. And it's like, I'm still here. Been trying to get out for years, but I still, it's what, when you do something, it's what you do, right?
Right.
So, yeah. But we're still tight like that, because it's not like you hear stories of groups and bands breaking up, and it's like our story just isn't that story. We speak every day. We're out yesterday. When we're hanging out, or she's at my house, I'm at hers, all we do is sit and watch old school hip hop videos and reminisce about the old days and pretend that we're making a comeback and all the fun stuff, because I think we was in it for the right reasons. Everything we done was for the right reason. We could have gone commercial. We could have done things that we didn't want to do in order to chase that money, to chase those hits. But in our hearts, we just didn't want to. We didn't have that desire. Maybe we didn't have the guts to take it that far as well. It was a hobby that turned into a business, and it was a business. We set up a company. We employed our dancers. We employed our DJ. Look, we paid salaries. We had an office. We paid taxes. We had management. We all took wages. We weren't like money comes in, spend it. Whether we done a gig, whether it was publishing money, whether it was royalties, everything went into a Cookie Crew bank account. And we paid ourselves salaries so that you could manage your business. So, not many people do that. You hear the sad stories.
Absolutely.
We paid our taxes.
Hey, it's funny. I wanted to ask you before, and I forgot, and you just mentioned it. DJ, who was your DJ?
We had three DJs in total over a period of time. Our first DJ was a female DJ. Her name was Maxine, and we called her DJ Boom Bash. She was with us for a short period. She didn't record any songs, just like when we done live gigs. We just wanted that, we saw Salt and Pepper, we wanted that all-girl crew. So, we, took our friend in. It's like, we came to the US, DJ Scratch trained her. We done everything to create this all-female group. And, we've done a few gigs together. We had another guy, his name is Dazzle. He passed away in 2015. He was fucking incredible. He was an amazing producer, white guy, producer, DJ, incredible, absolutely incredible. And then we had another guy called DJ Business, who still DJs to this day. He's doing always, if you look him up, he DJs all over London, globally. He became our DJ in the later years, like when we were, when we kind of like changed our lineup. We had different dancers, different DJs, just a whole different look. We had three. So we had DJ Boom Bash, which was Maxine. Then we had DJ Dazzle, which was the Cookie Crew DJ. And then we had DJ Business, who was, again, one of the official Cookie Crew DJs.
Nice, very nice.
We had the best of everything. We made sure.
We agree.
Yeah. And we were proper business people. When we paid people, we paid salaries, you done a show, you got paid. None of that bullshit. None of that bullshit.
Throughout the years, what does Cookie Pryce consider her greatest achievement?
Still being here. Still, you know what? I sometimes wonder what the hell I'm still doing here, but I keep saying to myself, this is what I do. When we disbanded, when we stopped making music, I had to find another lane. It's like, how am I going to be a part of the business, but not necessarily be an artist? Because I think, we've done that. It's not something I wanted to continue doing. And also, I didn't want to embarrass myself by trying to go solo, or maybe embarrass myself by trying to do a comeback. It's like, leave people with the best memories. So I managed to, try and discover what the industry was about, because even though we were artists and we knew there was press departments, radio, blah blah, it's like, what exactly do they really do? So, and I needed to work, so I signed up with recruitment agencies that specialize in placing people within record labels. So I'd sign up, and then you get assigned to different jobs. You might do the reception at Virgin Records. Oh, they need a press person in, whatever, and I'd do that. Literally just go into all these labels, get to know people. If you get signed up with an agency and a company likes you, you always get called back for jobs, and you just end up being there, end up being a permanent temp, then a permanent member of staff, and then you go through the whole process where company changes and there's redundancies and there's this and that. So I've moved. I've worked at the first label I worked at was MCA, which obviously became Universal. Then I'd gone to the US because I came to the US to work for a while, and I worked at an amazing company called Time Zone International. I came back to the UK. I was working at Atlantic Records, and then there was a period where I've done independent freelance work. You know, when you have those moments where you're employed and not employed, it's like you've got to get your hustle on. So I was doing consultancy for labels like Koch in the Paint Records, SMC Recordings. What's the other label? There's a whole bunch of labels on like the West Coast that I was doing work. I was working. Like I was hired. Some guy in the US had hired me. In the UK, I'd kind of like just set up promo, marketing stuff, and just run everything and just hustle. You know, one gig starts and it ends after a certain period. It's like, okay, so what's the next gig? Because when doors close, other opportunities open. And I just kept going, you know, worked at that label. I'm now working at an amazing company called The Orchard, which, you know, all part of Sony Music. I've been there for 9 years. So I'm a label manager there. So I've done everything, promotion,
Congratulations.
PR. Thank you. So it's just like, it's what I do. You know, it's what I do. And I manage to, and there are moments where like, I need to get out of this industry because it's getting on my nerves. We saw the changes that happened in 2020 and what's happening to Black people and people of color, the lack of us being hired and being promoted, all of that stuff, been through all of those journeys. And there are moments like I can't deal with this anymore, but then the bigger moments where I'm here for a reason. So this is why I do what I do.
Very dope. What do you have coming up in the future for everybody who wants to know?
Oh, just work. I'm just working, you know, I'm just working. I don't have anything specifically planned in terms of what am I going to be doing in a year's time, 2 years' time. I think I'm just kind of like doing what I do and doing my best, you know, because we all got to keep our head above water. But I have no major plan because I want to say I'm going to do this, that, and the other, and then I talk to you in a couple of years' time. So, nothing happens, you know. I think I'm doing a good job what I'm doing now, and things will happen organically, you know. Things will happen organically.
I have to ask you, there's not one little part of you anywhere inside that wants to
comeback?
put a song. Now, I'm not saying a comeback. I'm just saying, just
we
record.
Do.
Just,
yeah,
even if you don't put it out, you don't ever want to get into the studio?
I think we do, and we do laugh about it. We've been asked many times over the year. Even when I started at the Orchard, as soon as I put my foot in the door, it's like, Cookie, why don't you get your back catalogue? We can put your stuff out for the. Like, I need to get to know this job first. You know what? We might do something. We just haven't got our arse in gear. That's the thing. If we were to get our arse in gear, that's not a problem. We've been offered over the years. Been offered to come and do shows, to do this, and I think there's a part of it where I haven't done it for so long. What the fuck do I do? You know, what I can rap my old songs. Don't ask me to rap something new because I don't even know what that style sounds. You know, it's really weird because I feel like my world is still in the 80s, mid 90s. So if I wrote a rap now, would it sound out of date to these young people? I don't know. But you never know. If somebody said come and perform whatever Born This Way or I Got to Keep On or something at a big show, maybe we would do that. But we haven't proactively got our arse together. As much as we sit down and we joke about it and we muck around and we this and that, we haven't got around to doing it.
Okay, so the next time you get together with Susie, just keep one thing in mind if that conversation comes up again, that you guys have fans that grew up with you and are still here the same age and right there with you, that if you were to put something out, we would definitely want to hear it.
Absolutely. Especially in the digital age where people can access it.
I mean, we're still here. I just told you, I remember watching the video when it first came out. So, and I'm still here. So,
wow, what was that like when you guys saw and heard us and we were British? Because when we used to tour the US as well and interviews, like, yo, there's Black people in London. So
it was always dope. It was always dope to see something outside of the US all over the world. So when that video came on, it was just like, wow, you know what I mean? It was mind blowing. So definitely remember. Yeah.
And it was interesting because not for nothing. I mean, the fact that Fab Five Freddy was in that video and
Was that a big
anybody,
deal?
anybody
It's like
that,
a stamp.
well,
Like,
it was kind of a stamp, I guess, if that makes sense. Or anybody that was into hip hop and the hip hop culture. I mean, and you know, Fat Five Freddy, if he had his hand in whatever he's dealing with, then it must mean
Yeah,
something. I don't think
yeah,
Fat Five Freddy was ever the type to just kind of do something for the hell of it, or
yeah. He
you know
wouldn't
what I mean.
associate himself
So
with it.
it also created a lot of curiosity because it was like, who are they? Fat Five Freddy's dealing with them, you know. And then, like you said, I mean, we did see search in there, so we're just, you know, we're trying to figure out like
Yeah,
who are
yeah.
they, and they already have these type of connections. So it created more of an interest, honestly, as far as for us here.
That's
Um,
interesting to know.
so,
That's interesting.
I mean, besides the fact that you guys were dope, I mean, that's without mention. It was just that it created more of a interest.
Yeah,
Like, who are they? You
absolutely.
know, man, they must be making some noise if they already got Fat Five Freddy
Yeah,
searched in the video. And something we didn't talk about. You guys did deal with Rush Management.
yeah. We were with Rush for a short period actually. Yeah, we were. Yes, we were. Russell and Leo were our managers for a little bit. I can't remember how long for.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like we've kind of like I said, we came and we were like just placed in all the right places at the
Yeah,
right
yeah, yeah,
time. You know, the
yeah,
timing was
yeah.
perfect. And maybe at the time, us being quite young, or say young, we weren't really, I don't say business savvy. We just loved hip hop. Like
Yeah.
all this business stuff, all these meetings, there's all this, oh, we're going to do this and all this. Like, it's like we just want to go to the clubs. We just want to
Yeah,
go to the,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But it was amazing that in a short space of time from what we did in the UK to when we ended up in the US and spending a lot of time in the US recording in the US, and where that positioned us was, it was kind of like groundbreaking at that period. And like I said, back then, when we come back to the UK, it's like everybody hated us because we sold out. We didn't sell anything out. We just we went to do our job. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
right.
so we came back and we were very, very nervous coming back to the UK. We actually got ourselves in a position where we had a very close-knit circle of friends around us that was protecting us, because we'd go out to do shows and then people would be either heckling or throwing things. It's like, what is this? What is this negativity? There was always rivalry on a hip-hop scene. That's a given. But there was a different vibe when we started to become successful and we were doing things, we're moving forward. And we didn't understand that. It was like, if we're doing good, doesn't that mean there's opportunities? And before us, Derek B, were you guys aware of Derek B before us? So he impacted the US before us.
Right.
And I think he got some stick in the UK. It's just, what? People,
It's
humans,
just
we're
how
just
it
weird.
is.
People. Yeah.
Yeah, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Silly,
Miss
but, yeah.
Pryce, we want to thank you so much for allowing
you.
us to giving you your flowers. We got one last question before we get out of here.
Ah, man. Yeah. So hip hop is getting ready to turn 50 very soon. 50 years
Really?
old. Yeah. Crazy, right? So,
Wow.
you
Even
know,
though it's probably around, it was around way before that. We just didn't have the technology to,
you're
not the technology.
You're the second person that says they think that
Yeah.
hip hop is actually older than 50.
100%. But we'll
Okay.
stick
But
with the 50.
I guess the official, I guess what they're going by is the official year,
Yeah.
right? And date that it was
Yes.
claimed as
Yeah.
birth of hip hop.
Yeah.
But you're the second person that said that. But so turning 50, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about it? How do you feel about how hip hop has gone from its beginning to where we are now?
For me, I know that hip hop is the foundation of everything that exists on this planet. It's
Okay.
the reason this world even turns. It influences everything in our lives, absolutely everything. And my passion for it will never change. I will still act like I'm 17 and 18 when I hear a hip hop song. So it is the foundation. When I use the word foundation, I mean it is a foundation to everything. Somebody challenge me on that. I dare them.
I
Happy
agree.
birthday, hip hop.
Definitely. I agree with you. Man, once again, on behalf of myself, the journalist Sincere, changing of the hip hop girls, we appreciate everything you and Susie have done for the culture, providing us with such great music, and not only the music, the feeling. right? Because you
Nice.
guys, through your music, provided a very, I don't even know how else to explain it. You know, like we like to represent what we call the true hip hop feeling.
Yeah.
And you guys embodied that. And speaking to you today, man, you just made my day, because listening
Oh,
to all the
bless.
stories and
Yeah.
taking us through your journey, you know, coming to the city and the Bronx, and you know, all those
And
things you
that's
were talking about, going and buying your goose and you know that,
and
man.
that's a fraction. That's a fraction of the story.
I
A
know,
fraction.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
There was things that you said, that there were certain journeys and things in between that you guys didn't talk about, but maybe we could do a part 2 and touch on some of those.
I'm up for that, and then you can get both of us. I'll sort out so that we can me and Susie can jump on it together. For
Definitely.
sure. 100%. 100%. I was trying to make it work for today, but it wouldn't have worked for today. But we can do that. That's no problem. No problem.
In the
Once again,
meantime, when can we expect the Cookie Crew movie?
I've been working on that. I'm still writing the script, and I'm gonna play myself. How do you like that?
yeah.
Very dope, as you should. You still look the same.
Exactly,
I
man.
try.
You do.
One of these days.
Also, where can people find you? Where can they keep up with what you're doing, or you know, the Cookie Crew as a whole, individually?
Well, Cookie Crew as a whole, we're not, in terms of Cookie Crew as a whole, we're not doing anything Cookie Crew-esque. We're still, when we're together, like we have those fun moments, but in terms of we don't
Social
have
media.
a platform. Oh yeah, my social media is at Cookie Pryce. Yeah,
Cookie Pryce.
that's me.
There you go.
Very dope.
All right, so everybody, make sure you follow Cookie. Why not? The legend, right?
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much. We'll keep in touch with you. Thank you, like you said, for everything you've done for the culture, and we'll keep up with you in the future. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thanks for reaching out.
Thank you.
No problem. Take care.